Hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm gonna show you how to draw this cute dog using a very mix of brushes. Remember, if you are part of Multi-Brush Club, you can download all the brushes, texture papers and swatches that I'm using in the tutorial. Just have a look in the description below. When you open the illustration pack, as usual, you will find a PDF with the illustration, brushes, texture paper and swatches. Open the texture paper that it will open in a brand new canvas, and remember, we always draw in the layer underneath. Let me show you now the brushes, that they are like combination of all of these, and also these are going to be the colors that we will be using. Let's start sketching the dog, and I'm gonna start with a circle for the head and then kind of like a pea shape for the body. Then I'm gonna do 2 ovals for the ears. And just like keep in mind the proportions, how big you want the head to be or the ears. I like to make the head big so it looks more cuter. Then I'm gonna do just like the legs. I will connect the legs with a curved line to make kind of like a belly and the tail. For the face, I'm gonna do just like another circle for the snout. And I will add the rest of the details of the face as the eyes and a triangle for the mouth. Once you have your proportions right, you can start rubbing all the lines that you don't need. Also, because the dog that I'm gonna do is a paddle, all the lines that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make them a little bit curved, like drawing clouds to make it like more fluffy, the dog. I like to go over the lines, making them thicker, because I think in this way I can add more personality into the sketch. Just carry on adding all the details that you would like to add to your dog. I'm gonna do the same now, but with the body. So I'm gonna just go over all the lines, rubbing out those that I don't need, and make the lines a little bit curved to make that fluffiness in the fur of the dog. Also for the legs, I'm gonna just like add the different details, and the same for the tail. Keep working on the sketch of the dog, going over all the lines until you like how it looks. My next step is going to be just do the background and the floor, so I'm gonna do a line for the floor, and then I'm gonna do the dog kind of like in a park. So I'm gonna draw some bushes, and I'm gonna follow the same style. I'm gonna do some like plain lines, and then go over them just like with some curved lines to give them some texture. Now that the sketch is done, it's time to add color. So what I'm gonna do is to create a layer and move it underneath the sketch. Also, because the sketch we won't need it at some point, I'm gonna lower the opacity. So just tap on the letter N and lower the opacity until you can slightly see it, but it's not that obvious. Go to the layer that we just created and let's start adding colors to all the different elements. Usually, the way that I work, and I like to start my drawings, it is to create a layer for each new color that I apply. So for example, one layer for one bush here, and then I'm gonna create another layer because I'm gonna change color, and I'm gonna do the next bush. And I will keep carry on. Now another layer for the third one, that if you see the way that I'm positioning my layers, it is depending of which bush goes in front of the other. I'm using, as you see, like different tones of green, but within the same range, because I think they look nice. And then one more layer, but this time for the floor, and in a different green. I'm gonna start working now on the dog. So one new layer, because I'm using a new color, and because the dog is gonna be white, I'm gonna change the background first, making it a little bit like bluish, so I can see what I draw. You cannot see it very much here because of the brightness, but you can see it in yours. So now I'm gonna get the color white, and I'm gonna start adding the color into the dog. Just filling everything, don't you worry about any of the details yet. Something I like to do in order to create more texture and fluffiness into the fur of the dog, it is to go all the lines on the edges with the pastel 4 thick. Just select the color white and go over all the hair just to create that texture into it, as you can see here. I want to add some details and spots in the fur, so what I'm going to do is create a new layer and tap and select clipping mask. Now with a dark blue color, I'm gonna start adding some of these texture or patterns into the hair. I like to follow this kind of like round motion to create a more texture or just imitate kind of like the hair of the dog, as you can see here. Don't you worry if it doesn't look perfect yet, because it's just the beginning stage. Feel free to add any spots anywhere that you would like, but I focus especially in the face, a few on the back and in the legs. Now I'm gonna create another layer, but this time I'm gonna select a red color because I'm gonna just do the color of the dog. What I like to do now with the rubber, it is with the pencil brush, rub out some areas of the color so it looks like there's some hair in front of it, as you can see here. I'm going to draw now all the features of the face, and for doing that I'm gonna create a new layer right on top, and I'm gonna start just like adding all the details, just very simple. You can also add a tiny dot in the eyes to just create some brightness. You can skip this step, but if you are like me and you like to keep things organized, you can group all the layers related to the dog and group them just to find all the layers much easier from now on. I want to start working into the fur of the dog. I'm gonna create one layer on top, and then using the pencil brush and a light color, I'm gonna start adding some tiny curved lines creating the curly hair of the dog. As you can see, I'm following the pattern of the ears, and I'm doing these lines in a very random and messy way. I'm gonna keep adding ease in all the areas of the dog. One of the problems, because the screen is really bright, you cannot really see what I'm doing, but I pop up here on the left a picture so you can see what is the final result. One of the best parts of adding this line is just that you can delimitate like some areas of the legs or the belly, make them more obvious. I'm gonna start doing exactly the same, but this time with a darker color. As you can see, I'm just like picking other random spots and just adding like dark lines. Let's work now in the body of the dog, but I had the problem that the screen was really bright so you couldn't see anything at all, and I have to film this clip all over again. In a different background, camera, day, but you can see it so much better. First of all, let's go into the layer of the body of the dog and let's select Alpha Lock. The brush that we're gonna use from now on, it is the coloring irregular. And also a light blue color for adding all the shadows in the body of the dog. I'm gonna start with the button, and I'm gonna start adding some blue color right at the bottom and in the areas that they would go behind the legs. When I use this brush, I like to press really softly so it blends with the colors underneath. Also, I like to emphasize on the edges and the bottom of the dog, and also where the head meets the body. To add more depth and 3D and volume into the dog, I'm gonna select the white color and the intense coloring brush, and the areas that they should go more at the front, as the legs and the chest of the dog. In a circular motion, I'm gonna add some more white. That way, it's gonna really differentiate the two areas of the dog, which are the lights and the shadows. Now I'm gonna keep adding some more shadows. I'm gonna go back to the irregular brush, and with a darker blue, I'm gonna add even more darkness at the bottom of the dog, or for example, underneath the head or at the end of the tail. Something as well that I like to do to add more textures, it is to add tiny dots with this brush as I'm doing here. You can mix it up with different tones of blues, white, or like grayish colors. Let's add some shadows now, but this time in the face. And the areas that I'm going to focus in is where the white areas meet the blues. I'm going to add some blue, and that's it. Let's go back to the old clip. All I did before, it is here. The thing is that you cannot see it because of the brightness. But now let's add some texture and shadows into the black or blue areas of the hair of the dog. So first of all, let's find the layer and select Alpha Lock. And now back with the coloring irregular, I'm going to add some shadows on the edges and also here in the ears, in the parts that they would go behind them, just to create some volume. As you can see, I even select like a darker color for that. I'm going to do the same in the other ear. And also remember that you can keep following the same method of like do tiny touches on the screen to create some texture. Select a light color and do exactly the same, but with the areas that they should be more light, as for example at the top of the face or the ears. You can do exactly the same, but with the other parts of the spots in the dog. I want to make the eyes to stand out more, so what I'm going to do, it is in the same layer, I'm going to select like a lighter color. And I'm going to do a tiny line around the eye, like really subtle, just enough to make the eyes pop up. I'm not 100% how the blue areas look, so I'm going to unselect Alpha Lock and use the pastel for thick. And now what I'm going to do with different tones of blues, I'm going to keep adding more lines to make the head of the ears look more curly. I'm going to also add some more lines on the edges, just to create this texture of curly hair in the dog. And I'm going to repeat the process as well in all the stains that I draw around. I'm going to start working now in the background and you will see how simple it is. I'm going to start with the one at the back. And look, I'm going to select Alpha Lock. And the brush that I'm going to be using, they are going to be the Impressionism shadows and the light. We're going to use the shadows one when we want to add some shadows and dark colors, and the other one in the light. And look, I select a dark tone of green and I add some shadows. And now with Impressionism light, I'm going to add some light at the top. Realize the green is a little bit light, so I'm going to start compensated with a little bit darker. Because also I want to do the edges a little bit more smooth, I'm going to unselect Alpha Lock. And with the same light brush, I'm going to add some more leaves right at the top. I like to keep changing the tone of green just to make the transitions between the light and the darks more subtle. Let's work now in the next bush, and this time I'm not going to select Alpha Lock or anything. I'm going to select the color that I previously used for the base, and I will start with the shadow. Select like a darker green and add some leaves at the bottom. And then I'm gonna change into the light brush, a light color, and add some leaves at the top. Something as well that I like to do, it is to make my brush smaller in the leaves at the top and bigger at the leaves at the bottom. Let's do the same now, but with the final bush. Let's select the color of the base, and let's start with the shadows at the bottom with the shadow brush, and then with the light color, let's add some leaves at the top. So I want to keep working now on the floor, and the brush that I'm going to be using, it is the Pastel Fork Thick. And look, the way that it's going to go, I'm going to start with the edges, and from the center to upwards, I'm going to create this kind of like grass texture. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to change into the Pastel Fork Grass. And with a darker tone of green, I'm going to start adding tiny grass around all the floor. One of the characteristics of this brush, it is that the tone of green, it keeps changing. However, once in a while, I like to change the green into another one just to create all these different variations of color. Keep doing the same until you fill it up the whole floor. In the space where the dog is sitting, I like to add with a darker green some more lines to create a shadow over there. Now look, I'm gonna go to my layers and I'm gonna create one layer right on top, and especially in front of the dog. And I'm gonna do some grass that it goes over the dog. So we will create like this more like 3D effect that the dog is sitting in the grass. I felt like adding some more details around the edges and the corners in the illustration. So I'm gonna create one more layer right at the front, and with the pencil brush I'm gonna draw a leaf. I'm gonna use a dark green for that. When the leaf is ready, I'm gonna add the details. So I'm gonna select Alpha Lock, and then with the pencil texture and a darker color of green, I'm gonna add some texture at the bottom. And then I'm gonna change the color to a lighter one to add some more texture at the top. Finally, with the pencil brush, I'm gonna add just like the details of the leaf and just like adding a few lines in the middle and in both sides. I'm gonna start with a dark color and then I will do the same but with a lighter one. Instead of drawing the leaf over and over, I'm gonna duplicate the layer. And then with the transformation tool, that it is the arrow at the top, I can move it around and just create lots of different leaves. However, I think the color is exactly the same and I would like to change it. I'm gonna go to the adjustment menu and to the hue, saturation and brightness. Here you can change all the different settings to change the color of the leaf. Because I want to make it lighter, I'm gonna put the saturation a little bit up and also the brightness a little bit up, as I'm showing here. I'm gonna keep duplicating the layers to create a lot of different leaves around the illustration. With this leaf, I'm gonna do completely the opposite. Instead of making it lighter, I'm gonna make it darker. So I'm gonna lower the brightness, the saturation, and I'm gonna change the hue a little bit to blue. I'm gonna keep duplicating all the different leaves, move them around in the canvas until I like the way of the design. In order to keep things organized, I'm gonna select all the leaves and group them in one group all together. Finally, I'm gonna add some flowers. So I'm gonna create a new layer and select like a pinky reddish color. And I'm gonna draw a flower that is gonna consist in 3 ovals, as simple as this. Now I'm gonna create a new layer and with a green color, I'm gonna add just the stem of the flower. Let's add some texture in the flower. So I'm gonna select Alpha Lock and with the coloring intense, I'm gonna add some shadows and light. I'm gonna start with the light and at the top of the flower, I'm gonna add some light lines kind of. And then I'm gonna do the same with the bottom and with a darker color. Then with the pencil brush and a light color, I'm gonna do some lines following the shape of the flower. Now I'm gonna do the opposite but with a dark color and adding some more tiny lines, but this time right at the bottom, as you can see here. Once you have your flower ready, group both layers and just change the name into the one that you like. And I'm gonna duplicate the layer because I'm gonna create more flowers all around the illustration. Just decide which areas do you like them. You can follow and put them in the same way as me, or choose your own style. You can duplicate it as many times as you like. In the final flower that we have duplicated, I'm gonna make a more interesting flower in a very easy way. Get the layer of the petals and duplicate it. And look, you will have 2 layers. Go to the bottom one. And with the transformation tool, I'm gonna make the one at the top a little bit smaller and move it up. I'm gonna duplicate it again. And now the one at the bottom, I'm gonna move it up and making smaller. I'm gonna keep doing this, duplicating the petals, making them smaller and smaller, creating a completely different flower style. And exactly the same as we did with the leaves, to make the petals differentiate from each other, I'm gonna go to the adjustment menu and hue, saturation and brightness. And in summing the layers of the petals, I'm gonna make them a little bit lighter as I did with this one, or a little bit darker. You could decide. One of the rules that I follow, it is like the petals one next to each other, they have to have different tone of like this coral color. I'm gonna make sure that the group of layers that I use for this flower, I change it so I can identify much quicker. And I'm going to duplicate it, the whole flower, and just move it around to another place to have 2 of those. The very final thing, it is to color the background, so I'm gonna create 1 layer and move it right at the bottom. And then with the pencil texture brush, as you can see here, I'm gonna select different tones of blues and just add in some texture into the background. You cannot really see here again because of the brightness, I'm so sorry, but you will see here the final piece, that it looks like that. I hope you really enjoy it and you play around and use the different textures and it was easy to follow. Please, if you do it, tag us at School of Illustrations so we can share your art with the rest of the community. And also remember that if you are part of Monthly Brush Club, you can access to all the resources that I'm using as part of the different memberships. Also, in the student tier, as you can see here, if you send me the illustration, you can also get a personalized feedback of it. Thank you and see you next month in the next tutorial. Bye!